we are going to be unraveling financial accountability, specifically the CAG's report on the financial year 2020-2021. This is the 5th year that Policy Forum is providing a platform for Wajibu to provide this analysis, to disseminate this analysis to the people so that we can understand. This is a simplification of the CAG's report in short, so we can understand what is contained in it, because there's been a number of concerns by the citizens, yeah? And today, unfortunately, we won't be having him. The person who was supposed to be presenting is the former CAG, Mr. Ludovic Uto, but he has been assigned duty somewhere else. So instead, we are going to have the chairperson of Wajibu Institute of Public Accountability, Mr. Yona Killagane, who is going to be presenting on his behalf. Karibu sana, Mr. Yona Killagane. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Yona.
The first thing which we have to acknowledge, and Wajibu acknowledges, is the fact that Controller and the Auditor General has done an excellent job, and he has managed to submit his report on time, which is, according to the law, is on 30th of March, and also the same was tabled to the Parliament on 12th of April, which I think this is an excellent job, and they have conformed to the requirements of the law. And in these reports, there are new things which CAG has come up with. For instance, there is a specific chapter which deals with comprehensive audit, and for the first time, they have come up with real-time audit in this report on some of the projects. And also there is some feedback on corruption and fraud issues, and also there is a special mention about special audit and forensic audit, which is an excellent thing in this particular in this year's report. Also, one of the most interesting things this year, that there has been quite a number of discussions which have taken place among the social media, the general public, and in fact, one of the first, I would say, presentation which was made by the Honorable there of ACT, who had presented quite extensive issues of malpractice regarding of issues which have come out in respect with CAG's report. And among the issues which have come out very prominently and which was discussed in various circles, issues like, for instance, procurement of motorcycles by TAMISEMI, which was at an exorbitant price, issues of irregular issuance of visas, where there has been significant losses to the Immigration Department, malpractice in Bank of Tanzania regarding the destruction of the notes there, and there are significant losses also was, and then also what happened with National Health and Insurance Fund. All this clearly signifies that there has been significant interest with the general public in this year's report. And all the time, citizens have been demanding an issue of accountability. And obviously, the issue of accountability, I think government response so far, and according to the discussions which have been going on, I think has not been, possibly we'll have to wait for the response from the government as to what they're going to do in respect of these recommendations which the general public and the citizens have been coming up with. So in this presentation, we will cover what audit opinion, revenue mobilization, public expenditure, procurement and contract management, internal control and governance, which are major issues in this report, and then strategic project management, and then my colleagues is going to talk about red flags, and then we will come up with the, and also he'll talk about cross-cutting issues, and then I'll come back and talk about recommendations, which Wajibu is presenting. There are 4 types of audit opinion. Unqualified, which is a good report and which shows a true and fair view. Then there is qualified, where it's relatively, there are some minor issues which have been pointed out. And then adverse report, that's a bad report, that there are significant shortcoming to the report. And then disclaimer of opinion means the auditor cannot give any opinion whatsoever, in the sense that he's going to be silent. It's like that there are a lot of problems with the report. Either some documentation are not there and so on. So it cannot be able to form an opinion. Now, if we look at the audit opinion, so you find out that unqualified reports amount to 97%, which is for the current year. And then qualified report is 2%, adverse report 1%, and in this in 2020-2021 there was no disclaimer opinion. Now, if we look at if we compare that position with the previous year, you'll notice there that there has been significant improvement in the unqualified opinion from 86% to 97%. And then our qualified report also has gone down from 11% to 2%. Now, obviously, this gives the impression that there is significant improvement in financial preparation of financial statement. However, if we look at the report itself and the issues which has come out in the report, they are quite significant mismanagement of public finances. Now, why is that happening? I think that is because of lack of accountability. Because surely, if you look at unqualified opinion of 97%, and if financial statement preparation has improved, why is it that there are quite a number of weaknesses, and some of them they are quite serious weaknesses, which have been which is contained in the CAG's report? So that's something which needs to be looked at seriously, because you cannot have very good unqualified report of 97% and yet serious problems of public finance. So what we're saying is audit opinion and financial statement do not reflect the entire inherent risk. So financial factors have been taken into account, but there are some other issues which needs to be dealt with. CAG has come out with issues like instances where noted where entity having unqualified opinion still significant non-compliance with laws and regulations. And non-compliance, mismanagement, and the other financial issues are reported but not considered as a basis unless it results into financial losses. And last what we are saying is non-financial factors should be given due consideration to reflect real position of the auditee. So that is an issue which I think needs to be discussed at this forum. Why is that you have the quality of financial statement, but yet there are some malpractices. Now, if we look at the implementation of the recommendations, again, we notice that during the current year, implemented was 33%, under implementation was 31%, not implemented 19%. And then if we look at the trend on the right-hand side there has been significant improvement on implementation of the recommendation of CAG. Despite the increase on the implementation of CAG recommendation by 3% from the previous year, the rate of implementation is still below 50%. So that's an issue, again, which is, I think, needs to be discussed at this breakfast meeting. Now, let's look at the revenue mobilization. On revenue mobilization, if we look at the budget estimate, there has been significant increase in the budget estimate from 32.5 to 34.9. Similarly, on the collection side, you see that there has been improvement from 2019 to 2020, 2021. This has remained at level. So there is a variance there of about 3.6 billion. And the variance is about 10%. Now, generally, variance should not be more than 5%. So again, the indication, the message that which you get from there is that there is an unrealistic budget which is being prepared, because look at the difference here is 10% as opposed to be at least 5%. Yeah, on the public expenditure, on the consolidated fund, for instance, you notice that revenue collection from the previous slide was 31.5, but actual what was deposited in the consolidated fund is 30.1. So there is a difference there of almost 1.254 billion shillings. Now, this difference means that the funds were not deposited to the consolidated fund according to the law. Now, where did this difference come from? It was that funds were channeled directly to the project instead of going through a consolidated fund and then later being disbursed. And also, there were some 4.5 billion in respect with special funds. Now, in addition, CAG has come up with this, that additionally, special fund and the collection by TRA were not transferred into consolidated funds as of 30th of June. So this is over and above what has been noted by CAG. Now, when we look at the budget execution on the current side, current expenditure, you notice that there has been relative, on average, is about 95% of the approved estimates. Now, on the development expenditure, this has been in 2018, 2019, it was 66. 2019, 2020, it was 65. There was a drop there, but 2021 and 2020, 2020 and 2021, the percentage of expenditure from the budget was 81%. So it means more funds were channeled to development expenditure. Now, CAG also has come up with quite a number of findings in respect of human management. For instance, there is an outstanding claims from staff of 595.7 billion shillings. Now, also, the issue of ghost workers has remained pertinent in the sense that in 2020-2021, it was 566.85 million shillings. Now, in order to ensure that at least the government or the public sector operates efficiently, you need be provided with staff. But if you notice that the CAG has come up with the finding of the fact that there was a shortage of staff in the public sector amounting to 58,072. So that's quite substantial, and obviously that's going to affect the performance of the public sector. Now, on issues of poor governance and weak internal controls, we notice that there has been, the CAG has come up with the fact that there is lack of monitoring mechanism, which have led to poor implementation of projects. For example, there is the issue of women, youth, and people with disabilities. and also the recommendation of the CAG for monitoring of projects. So that clearly shows that there is problem with the monitoring. And then also, the other problem with the governance is the fact that there is lack of governing boards. Because the governing boards are the ones who are formulating strategies, policies, and overseeing the operation of these public authorities. But notice that in this year, it was 31 public authorities, they didn't have boards. Whereas in 2019-2020, it was 30 entities. Now, obviously, if there are no governing boards, the effectiveness and the control aspect of those public authorities is going to be at stake. And in fact, there are some of public authorities, you find out that only a chairman has been appointed, but the board directors have not been appointed. So obviously, the board of directors, it cannot function. So that's one of the biggest problem as far as governance is concerned. This year around, there were 5 public authorities which did not submit their financial statements for audit. There has been quite a number of conflict of interest, and particularly when it comes to procurement. And then there is also problem with weak internal controls. You can see that 45 local authorities, they paid cash 6.19 billion shillings instead of paying it through electronically. So clearly that shows that there are problems with internal control systems. If you look at the Higher Education Students Loan Board and women, youth, and people with disabilities, you can notice that when it comes to loan board, loans were issued to eligible students amounting to 1.77 billion shillings. Whereas also, those students who were qualified to be granted with loans, they could not be granted with loans. And very interesting, if you look at the trend, this has been an increasing trend. In 2018-2019, there were 16,056 students. They were eligible. They could not be granted loans. This number has now almost more than doubled, which is a very serious issue. And similarly, if you look at the amounts has also increased threefold. So I think that's the observation of CAG. Now, with women, youth, and people with disability, refund has been quite a serious problem, which CAG has come up with. 47.1 billion shillings could not be collected because this is supposed to be revolving fund. And then 83 local authorities did not contribute the 10%, which is a statutory requirement. And then provision of loans to those groups which were not supposed to get loans. They were, amounted to 178.51 million. Then funds which were collected but not transferred and utilized was 1.24 billion shillings. Now, there is a requirement of the loan rate requirement. Now, there was non-compliance there amounting to 326, so 3.26 billion shillings. So all these are mismanagement of public resources. Another aspect is the public investment. Now, if we look at the public investment, I find that the presence of unfavorable environment climate has been an issue from 2015 to 2020. You notice here that from 2020 to 2020, Tanzania dropped by 8% in terms of environment, whereby we were ranked 144 out of 190. And then decreasing new capital investment. You can notice here that the investment, foreign direct investment dropped from 500 million to 86.6 million in 2021. So that's a significant drop in public investment. Then poor performance of financing initiative for SMEs, because SMEs are the engine of economic development. Now, what has been the consequence of poor investment? First one is that there has been high unemployment rates, 9.5%. Low financial inclusion rate. You can notice that it has dropped. It's 28%. Low contribution to the agricultural sector, because again, you need the agricultural sector to spear out economic development. Now, contribution of GDP has been 28%. Lastly, it's a low pace on poverty reduction. It has dropped from 26.4% to 25.7% in 2019-2020. Now, there are also some weaknesses which have been observed by CAG in respect with strategic project management. The observations have been poor quality projects. That's the first thing which we'll look at later. And then there were losses in public fund caused by poor project implementation, and then uncompleted projects, and a completed project which could not be utilized. Now we'll look at all these items in the next slide. So on the poor quality of projects, you find, for instance, an example which has been cited by CAG is construction of Busoka and the Sirari market, which was financed by Africa Development Bank. This project had cracks, and you can see there, look at the beams there. They are completely bent. So clearly, that is misuse of public resources. So project implementation without due consideration of quality, which CAG has identified, were 6.06 billion in 10 local government authorities. Losses arising caused by poor project implementation. The problem here was that the projects that the public were not engaged in these projects. And as a consequence, there were loss amounting to 256.6 billion shillings. And this loss arose from, for instance, there were overpricing amounting to 0.5 billion, interest charged due to delays in the payment of contracts, and there are quite a number of also, I think, news media have come out with that. You find out that it's 231 billion. Abandoned projects have led to 0.79 billion. Additional compensation has been 22.5 billion. Negatory expenditure, 0.2 billion. And incorrect payment of VAT of 0.68 billion. So clearly, these are the losses which the government has suffered because in project implementation, 250, that's a total of 255 billion. Now, when it comes to construction uncompleted projects, there is a construction of flood control and stormwater drainage system at Gerezani Creek there, where it was delayed by 356 days, and that costed 8.5 billion shillings. Then construction of investments sub-project in Mtoni Ward, which is sometimes referred to as Bustani Sabasaba. There was a delay of 357 days, and that led to a loss of 18.43 billion shillings. Incompleteness of projects, that's worth 195 billion shillings, and that was in respect with the local authorities, 128 local authorities. And all this was because of lack of citizen engagement. And then abandonment of projects, which were worth 41.51 billion for long period completion, and then abandonment of projects with the drilling of 20 boreholes at Ikungi, which led to a loss of 758 million shillings. Completed projects which were not utilized. We notice here that the CAG has come up with these findings that completed projects worth 7.6 billion not in use due to lack of electricity capacity and staff shortages. This was in respect with 30 local government authorities. Then construction of community market, which were completed and not in use for more than 12 months at Bobom Tiwalani, which costed 989.9 million shillings. And then completed health projects which could not be utilized amounted to 3.98 billion in respect with 20 local government authorities.
Basically, procurement and contract management processes are abused. There are issues of bank reconciliations. There are issues of bank accounts not well scrutinized. Revenue losses due to failure of systems. Transactions are provided or recorded twice. Irregularities in expenditure. All this amounting to issues of red flags in corruption. Now, in the CAG report, when he mentions about red flags of corruption, it means kwamba these are indicators. These are indicators. These are things that showing that corruption is detected. But there are issues of theft that have been reported and issues of fraud. Now, when we did our analysis, we came up with the issues that are mounting to corruption and fraud to the tune of 3 trillion, which is equivalent to 13% of the total spending, which was 25 trillion. This is an increase of previous year of 2019-2020, which was about 1.7 trillion. So that is the magnitude we are talking about in terms of corruption and fraud. And the breakdown of them is central government had the highest, which was 1.9 trillion. Development projects was 74 billion. Local government was 122.6 billion. Public authorities and other bodies was 1.1 or 1.2 trillion. What are the implications of this to cross-cutting issues such as climate change, human rights, and gender? What we are seeing is that in climate change, there was a lack of environmental impact assessments, for example, as shown in projects worth 28.17 billion in 9 LGAs. There was also an issue of primary mining licenses, owners operating without environmental impact assessments. And this has caused, you have seen even in the media, the issues of mines pouring dirty water into the rivers, and it affects the people who are using the rivers and things like that. So environmental impact assessments is very important to avoid such issues. Human rights violations, we are seeing in the CAG report that, for instance, in prisons, there were 15 prisons that were audited this year by the CAG. 8 did not have access to clean water. Medical services, adequate of physicians and medical doctors were not present by 78% to 80%. Overpopulation in prisons, we picked the highest rate of overpopulation in prisons, in 2 prisons. This was Keko and Kiomboi prisons. In Keko, overpopulation is 194%. In Kiomboi, overpopulation is 128%. Out of the 15 prisons, 15 audited prisons, only 2 had security systems, such as CCTV cameras, metal detectors, and scanners. There was inadequate management of case files in the court system during the investigation process. For example, 297 reviewed case files from the National Prosecution Services between 2016 and 2017 to 2020-2021 showed inadequate coordination between state attorneys and police investigators. About 78% of 297 reviewed files were found to obtain missing substantial attachments such as police case, investigation diary, and charge sheets. And we have not included, but also delays in case in prosecution. We have seen delays up to 48 months in terms of cases, management of cases. And there we are saying that it is a human rights issue because justice delayed is justice denied. On gender, we are seeing rampant mismanagement of public resources have caused gender disregard and biasnesses in accessing essential public services such as health, water, education. This is cross-cutting all the reports that you go through. Things like uncompleted and completed projects but not in use have denied the most users of these services, such as women, youth, to access the services, and that creates the gender disregard and biasness that we're talking about. Inaccessibility of water services and medical care in prisons is another issue. But also poor infrastructure in marketplaces have affected mostly women who are using these markets mostly than probably men. But also poor infrastructure at schools. We have seen that in the CAG reports, lack of desks, lack of classrooms, all that has contributed into the issues of gender.
Well, on the basis of the findings of CAG, and as we have articulated in this presentation, now the recommendation, the first one, is on the audit opinion. Wajibu is recommending that the accounting profession should consider the basis of issuing audit opinion to reflect non-financial issues. The issue here is that how come that you have 97% unqualified report, and yet there are serious observations which the CAG has come up with. So I think there is need for the profession to reassess themselves. And then the next one is the implementation of the CAG recommendation, which was issued in 2019-2020, whereby there was need to harmonize and merge these two systems, IFT, IMS, and the GARI ITS, which are the systems for tracking audit recommendations. So I think that's another issue which the next thing is to get, we have seen the extent of the losses and the quality of projects that we have seen there. One of the biggest problems has been that citizens are not engaged. So there is need to have an engagement of system of the citizens right from the budget preparation, execution of the project, and even at the end of how the project is going completed. So there is need for the government to insist on the inclusiveness of citizens in the implementation of development project by insisting on the implementation of the O and the OD. All these problems that we have seen, which the CAG has come up with. The issue is, if you strengthen internal audit department, then I think that will save quite a lot of issues. So there is need to have, first of all, internal audit should be independent and they should be effective. And we are proposing that internal audit should report directly to Chief Secretary, because they are the head of the government business, and also that internal audit should be provided with separate vote instead of the vote being part within the Paymaster General votes. On the improvement of business environment, we're saying that the government to effectively implement blueprint on regulatory reform to improve business environment in the country. We have seen the drop in foreign direct investment, which CAG has come up with. And then on the management of women, youth, and people with the disability, they're saying that Kamisemi, in collaboration with the regional secretary, to enforce the implementation of the 2019 guideline for managing this empowerment fund. And in particular, I think Wajibu in the past had recommended that there should be a separate bank to deal with this particular issue, because we have seen the problems that has come about, that funds are not being collected, either funds are not being deposited in the right way, and people who are supposed to get the funds are not getting the funds. So that's Wajibu's recommendation. And then on the higher education students loan board, that their system of loan management system needs to be strengthened in order to avoid the weaknesses that CAG has come up with. There is need for, if you look at the Constitution, Article 90, 2B, it says that the president shall have the power to dissolve parliament if the National Assembly refuses to approve the budget process by the government. So what we are proposing here is that this particular section should be amended, because obviously with the members of parliament, they know if the parliament is going to be dissolved, it means they will lose their representation to the parliament. Public Finance and Public Procurement Act, I think the recommendation here is that there should be some sanctions imposed for non-compliance with public finance and public procurement, including issues like fines, demotions, termination, and even legal action. I think that will go a long way in trying to address misuse of public resources. And then lastly, it's the issue of fraud policy. I think there is need for government to institute and establish documented fraud prevention plan and fraud risk management. And at a later stage, explore the possibility of enacting a fraud act. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Imagine last month we visited a village called Moneka. These citizens built their own health facility with their own money and their own cement and their own everything. And then this health facility has been there since 2019, but does not have health practitioners, no doctor, no nothing, despite the fact that they put on their own efforts. And people are dying. We're trying to end child mortality and maternal mortality, but these people are still dying because of ghost workers, people who are being paid for doing nothing. There's unemployment, a lot of graduates in the streets, and we still have ghost workers, you know? There's a lot of infant mortality and mothers dying. And then we have people using NHIF for C-sections. So you can just imagine how sad this report is, you know? And for those of you, Mr. Killagane mentioned O and OD. For those of you who do not know what ONOD is, it's a system, a government system issued by OR TAMISEMI. It's called the Opportunities and Obstacles for Development system, where it caters for development projects it caters also for community participation and community involvement from the planning stage to implementation stage. So imagine there are a lot of community development projects that are just sitting somewhere. A lot of money has been invested in it, but they're not doing anything. Did we involve these citizens when we were planning for this for these projects? That's the question. The question we're supposed to ask ourselves. Citizens' participation. Do we participate? Do we know what these things are? Are they out there? Okay. CPA Zalia is here.
I would like first to draw the attention that the overseer of the financial reporting process at the entity level is vested to the board of directors. And in order to enhance an effective corporate governance, there are players, there are key players in ensuring that an entity is accountable and is transparent and is also overseeing the entire process over the financial reporting process. So from the CAG report, there's one slide that was showing poor governance and weak internal controls. You find we have, there's a number of entities that did not have a board. So you find there is just a chair, there is no members. Also, we saw in the report, looking at the effectiveness of the audit committee, and this is a subcommittee of the board that its main responsibility is to oversee the entire process over the financial reporting process, of which now the output is the CAG report, the external part. So there were also instances where a number of institutions, particularly in the central government and local government, they didn't have the audit committee. And if there is an audit committee, their work was not really adequate enough to address the issue of financial reporting. So they were just focusing on one item. And the CAG went further to just go and review the minutes of the audit committee. They didn't see any substantive work that the audit committee did to ensure that they provide an oversight role over the financial reporting process. So that is one player in as far as the governance is concerned. So coming to the internal audit, what does the internal audit do in an organization? So an internal audit is, we can say it's like an eye. It's a tool that to enhance management perform their duties effectively in terms of providing the assurance. And we provide assurance in three key areas. We provide assurance on internal control, which is the one that we want to address here. We also provide assurance in governance and risk management aspect. But also we do a consulting role. If there is an element that management is struggling for a long period of time and they want to focus in that aspect, then we do a consulting. So there are key role that internal audit is doing in the organization. So if you see all this happening, there is something somewhere that is not going well. And one of the aspects that I was going through the internal, this CAG report, there is an ineffective functioning of the internal audit. Why is it not effectively functioning? I was looking at the number of issues. They don't have manpower. And we have seen HR is also one of the key items that was coming from this report, that there is a shortage of manpower. So audit department, they were understaffed. If an entity has an audit department, then you find they don't have a laptop, they are not given budget. So you find maybe the board approved the audit plan, but the auditor didn't do any audit. 100% the work was not performed because he was not provided with adequate resources to do the work. So you will easily see that, yes, we have an internal audit function, but if you don't provide necessary support, like the tool, the financial support, you will end up having all these issues coming. Something also which came out as part of the internal audit, part of the internal control deficiencies is the implementation of the auditor's recommendation. And implementation of the auditor's recommendation, within the organization, if the CAG recommendation, then it's the responsibility of internal auditors to follow up and ensure those issues are closed. So you find there are a number of issues which are coming up that these issues are not closed. Why are not closed? Is it that the internal auditor didn't do his or her work, or is it like the entire Trinity didn't perform the work that was required to be done? So for me, what I see is a collective responsibility in the organization, because if you say, internal auditor, go and do this, and you tie him or her with the issues around, there are so obstacles for him or her to perform the job, then don't expect to get a good output out of that. So the issue that are coming just to strengthen is a collective responsibility, and in the aspect of the risk management, we say there is a 3-line models that we are players in the governance, we are supposed to be aligned, we work together. So there is a management that has to take day-to-day care of the organization. Then there is this an assurance provider, internal assurance provider, who is the internal audit, also is supposed to work effective, and also the board, the oversight that they are supposed to work. So if there is a weak link somewhere, don't expect this a machine to work. Like it's like a car, for example, a car. If the steering, the steering is not well aligned, like it is weak, don't expect the car will move. Or if you don't have a fuel, your car will not move. So these key players, they need to work, and they need to be aligned to ensure that we achieve what we want to achieve. But before I just give back the mic, I would like also to appreciate the work that was done by the CAG, and also appreciate the work, the output that is coming. Having audit opinions and qualified audit opinion at 90-something% is not a small job. We are just seeing something up there, but within the iceberg, there's a lot that is being done so far to ensure that things are moving on well. This, what is coming up, those are the issues that now we as professionals, we need to really sit down and see how well we can address them. There was one recommendation from the Wajibu regarding the internal audit function, and maybe just to put it clear, the recommendation that the internal audit function to report to the Chief Secretary is for the IAG, the Internal Audit General Office, not the individual internal auditors within the entity, because the structure for the individual internal auditors, they report to the accounting officer as well as the board. But for the IAG, currently is reporting to the permanent secretary, Minister of Finance, which is not proper. And that what is coming up is to report the higher authority, and as per Wajibu, which I think also is a very good recommendation, that they should report somewhere where their issues should be addressed. And there was also one aspect that was coming up from the social media, from the commentators, like maybe internal auditor, they're just sleeping, they don't work, like that. This is the key issue that is coming up. There is a number of work, there's a work that is done by the internal auditors, but where are they reported? Where are they ending? If I finish my work in my entity, on quarterly basis, I'm supposed to share my report to the internal auditor general. So once I submit, where does it go from there? And who is taking care of those issues that are coming from the external audit, from the internal audit? So if we do analysis to Wajibu regarding a recommendation of the external auditors issues, you'll find those entities that they didn't implement their external audit recommendation. If you go down to the internal audit, you also find the same problem, because there's no one who is taking care of those issues. And having an act for implementation of audit recommendation, yes, but this is a performance issue. It's a performance. Somebody has not done his job. So what can we do? Maybe we collectively, let's say our HR system, our human resource system, or our performance management system, does it take audit recommendation as a key metric, as a key performance, or is just the audit opinion? Because currently what I see, ukipata hati safi, mnapiga makofi na kusherekea, lakini sio ukitekeleza hoja ya mkaguzi. Kwa hii kutekeleza hoja ya mkaguzi, kama haikutekelezwa, ndio haya yote yanayokuja kutokea. Na ukiangalia kwa asilimia kubwa, haya ni machache, ukienda ukachukua na yale ya chini ni mengi zaidi. Kwa I think we need to also, apart from having an act, we need also to make sure that the issue regarding implementation of auditors' recommendation is being part of the performance, so that at least those charged with those issues, they should be evaluated based on how well they implement auditors' issues. And another recommendation maybe I would want to add on the internal audit function is the regulations, if they act as well. If you go down and look how is the internal audit function in Tanzania mandated, you rarely find where is it sitting. You'll find in the Public Finance Act somewhere as a section, somewhere as. So it's just down there. So we have to elevate this function, as we have seen this is one of the key players in enhancing corporate governance. You can't leave it down there. So you need to elevate it so that when we give them accountability, we give a fair accountability to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, if I got you correctly, the functions of the internal auditor so far is like a dog that does not bite. Somehow. Yeah? Okay. Because the system is in place, but then they're understaffed, and then the act doesn't speak about it that much. It's hidden somewhere. So they need to be really out there. Yeah? Okay. So a few minutes to reflect amongst ourselves. This is a lot, and I know a lot of people have so much to say about these presentations and what CPA Zelia has said as well on the internal audit. And then when we resume, one person is going to represent one table.
Your report provided some alarming information with respect to the Higher Education Student Loan Board and the very poor quality management of student loans. So our recommendation is for you to really go through the process of working out adequate controls and recommending, because I know that your role is one of recommending to the authorities, and just going through and working out adequate controls. More than just simply saying that there need to be improvement in management, I think there need to be concrete measures to show how those improvements can be implemented, and that controls are put in place to ensure that those who merit the loans are those who receive the loans. And then in terms of the school system in general, there is also a need, the schooling or education system in general, there is a need for sweeping reforms, sweeping improvements. That shows up not only from the report, but from the experience of members on our table, like this honorable gentleman here who spoke very passionately about some of the deficiencies in the school system. I will cheat a little bit because I think that you did not address, or I don't think you addressed, what one of the most alarming issues for me that came out of your report, which was the fact that there were some revenues that were not deposited in the consolidated fund. That totally undermines the idea of a consolidated fund, and it is a channel by which things can very easily go out of control, go off budget, and then it becomes impossible to monitor. And as you rightfully said, 97% unqualified opinions don't matter if the coverage of the CAG over over the accounts is not complete and things are going off budget. So that's alarming, and I think it should form a specific recommendation from you.
Okay, engaging citizens to make decisions is a very good idea, but still there is a challenging factor that we also know about it, because involving someone to make decision for something they don't know is sometimes in a hard position to make decision that will stand on. So we recommended that you should invest in creating awareness to citizens first on project that benefits us as well. Because if you create or you build the capacity to them, they'll know where to stand on and to give decisions on which project to stand on. Thank you.
JCAG anapoingia katika kufanya ukaguzi wake, huwa tunaangalia kwamba serikali labda imeongeza budget kwa mwaka huu kutoka mwaka fulani, labda kuna ongezeko la budget kiasi fulani. Lakini pia CAG huwa ana take into consideration kwamba kuna population growth ya kila mwaka na kuna inflation ya kila mwaka. Hicho nacho kingesaidia katika kukagua vizuri zaidi, hata kupanga mapato ya serikali. Mara nyingi huwa tunashangilia kwamba kuna budget imeongezeka, lakini hatuangalii swala la inflation na ongezeko la watu ambalo linatokea kila mwaka. Na kingine, kulikuwa na kwenye report ya CAG kunakuwa na hii poor quality of projects, kwamba yani project toka inaanza mpaka inamalizika inakuja kuonekana iko poor, kwamba iko kwenye kiwango cha chini. Je, kwenye implementation watu wanaohusika kuhakikisha ule mradi unakamilika wanakuwa wanafanya nini? Kuna kitu gani ambacho kinatakiwa kifanyike zaidi ili kabla haijakamilika mradi na pesa ikapotea bure? Unashangaa unakuta waziri anasema mbona jengo limepasuka na jengo limeshakamilika mpaka limepigwa bati. Kwa nini ifike mpaka huko? Inatakiwa izuiwe hapa. Lakini kitu kingine, hii taarifa ya CAG tunaifikishaje kwa wananchi? Wanapataje hizo taarifa? Inawezekana ikawa ngumu namna ya kuwa engage kutoka ile stage ya kwanza ya kupanga hiyo miradi, lakini ni kwa namna gani wanazipata hizi taarifa ili sasa kuchochea ile hamu ya wao kushiriki kwenye mipango ya miradi na nini kabla mambo hayajaharibika. Huko tunakuja kukuta taarifa zinakuwa mbaya kwamba miradi mingine inaachwa au inatekelezwa katika kiwango cha chini. Lakini kuna swala pia la waliongelea swala la gender disparity na kawataja PMO Raj au TAMISEMI. Mimi nilikuwa nadhani ni swala mtambuka ambalo kila wizara ingehusika, kwa sababu TAMISEMI tu overall, na naamini kwamba kila wizara sasa hivi ina gender desk. Sasa kwa nini tuwape PMO Raj peke yao, wasihusike wizara zote, ili ikawa rahisi katika kuangalia haya mambo ya gender disparities? Asante.
As a citizen or people or Wajibu report should focus on detailed. For example, when we talk about lack of governing bodies in the public institution, we should see exactly why are these governing bodies suffocated. Are these people not elected because of some reasons? Maybe people want to do their own bad deals, or there is another problem. So we should actually find out exactly what is happening on them. And also there are the issues on report on reg fraud corruptions. We should be able to be bold enough to name and shame all these corruptions, because when you talk about 13% of the total disbursement or the budget is being used for corruption, we should know exactly which institutions did this habit. And then we should, as we said, citizen engagement, or we should be transparent enough to speak about it. There's a lot of needed to be highlighted on the prisons. The issue, for example, the issue of food, I didn't see, and if it is there, maybe it should be explained. The issue of access to clothing, crowdness, it should be also involved. On the gender, when you go to prison, you find the women who have gone against the law. But you find also they have babies. And then in most time, you find all these babies are also prisoners or inmates, because there are no facilities which separate these mothers with their kids. So, and then for the maybe understaffing reasons, they have to be kept the same, because if they're breastfeeding, they have to be kept in the same locker or the same cells. So we should clearly look at on this report and highlight what needed to be done on that area. And then another thing which is very crucial here on citizen engagement. We cannot be able to say there is no bridge which was supposed to be built in my area, if I don't know whether the budget was set aside and also the disbursement was done. So what we need to do is it's to look at the report, the budget, which comes every year on July, and to see this is the budget, which is a public document, but we should also force to see the disbursement of the fund to be also a public document, because I don't know if this you can get access to the disbursement. So in the budget, which is a public document which has been passed by the parliament, you will see that there is a fund to build the road on my city. And how can I be a citizen now, a citizen auditor? I'll be able to know exactly this is been, the budget was disbursed if I know there is a public place where I can find this disbursement. And then if that it will be public, that is the only time we will be able to question the government that this was supposed to be done. We know it is in the budget, and then we know the fund has been disbursed. Thank you very much.
Where are we getting things wrong? Why do we still have almost similar problems year after year? And why are they not being fixed properly? So if we get the root cause of the problem, I think that's where we can actually get a solution. So this is what I was saying. Is it a question of law? Don't we have proper laws? Is it a question of governance? That don't we have the proper governance structures in our institutions? Is it a question of skills or people? So those are things that we need to get to understand, and then trying to find out the real solutions to all these problems.
Ninachokiangalia hapa, taasisi nyingi za serikali hazina muunganiko, hazifanyi kazi kwa kuangalia taasisi zingine zafanya nini. Kwa mfano, kitu kidogo tu, mwekezaji anataka kujenga project au mradi wowote ule, lazima aende halmashauri akapate kibali cha ujenzi. Lakini kama hawa halmashauri wangekuwa wanajua, ni simple tu, anasema siwezi kupatia kibali cha ujenzi mpaka upate cheti kutoka NEMC. Kwa lazima atafanya hivyo. Ama kwa mfano mwekezaji anataka kuweka shelter mafuta, ataenda EULA. Akifika kule ataambiwa bwana, siwezi kupatia kibali mpaka upate cheti kutoka NEMC. Kwa kama wangekuwa tunafanya vile, kuangalia taasisi zingine zinaangalia nje ama kuunganika na taasisi zingine, baadhi ya mapato ambayo tunaona bilioni 28 leo hii tusingekuwa tunaziona hapa. Asanteni sana.
Tumeona kwamba politicians au political wanaweza wakatumia fursa hii kuweza kusapoti vile vitu ambavyo CAG anavitoa ili vifanyiwe kazi. Mfano, juzi tumeweza kuona kulikuwa kuna msemo wa Kinana, Mheshimiwa Kinana aliweza kusema kwamba government inatakiwa ichukue actions mapema. Ya pili, deliberately undertaking resources. Yani hapa CAG anapotoa ripoti, hata kama ofisi za privately na za serikali zote kwa pamoja washirikiane mapema sana kufanyia kazi vitu vyote ambavyo vimeweza kusemwa kama upungufu ambao unaonekana kwenye ripoti yake.
Nadhani baadhi yetu tunakumbuka mwaka 2012 tulikuwa na ripoti kama hii. Nikisema kama hii, maana yake ni kwamba kila mwaka CAG anatoa ripoti. Yaani kuna miaka ambayo hoja za ukaguzi ni za kawaida, sababu ni lazima kuwe na hoja za ukaguzi. Mkaguzi akikagua lazima tu kutakuwa na hoja za ukaguzi. Kwa kuna miaka ambayo hoja za ukaguzi ni za kawaida. Mwaka 2012 wakati huo CAG ni Uto alitoa moja ya ripoti ambayo kwa wakati ule ilikuwa ni mbaya sana, na serikali ilipigwa pressure sana mpaka mawaziri 8 wakafutwa kazi. Ripoti ya mwaka huu ni mbaya zaidi ya mwaka 2012. Mimi katika uzoefu wangu wa miaka michache ya kushughulika na ripoti za mdhibiti na mkaguzi mkuu wa hesabu za serikali, sijaona ripoti ambayo ina outright theft kama hii. sijaona, lakini mpaka sasa sijaona hatua yeyote ambayo imechukuliwa, yaani hata ya uwajibikaji wa kisiasa hatujaona. Kwa nadhani kuna haja kubwa sana ya hatua, sio lazima iwe sawasawa na ile ya mwaka 2012, lakini jambo kubwa sana linapaswa kutokea, vinginevyo mwakani inaweza ikawa hali mbaya zaidi kuliko hii ambayo tunaiona sasa. Jambo la pili ambalo ningependa nilichangie na ndo la mwisho, kuna mapendekezo ambayo Wajibu mmetoa kuhusiana na internal audits, na pia nimeona baadhi ya mapendekezo mwenyekiti wa internal auditors ameyaunga mkono, lakini napenda mlitazame hili kidogo. Huko chini internal auditors wanaripoti kwa internal audit committees, kamati za ukaguzi kwenye halmashauri, kwenye mashirika ya umma. Sina hakika kwenye ngazi ya wizara wanaripoti wapi, sababu sina hakika kama kwenye ngazi ya wizara kuna kamati za ukaguzi. Yaani kwenye ngazi za halmashauri na kwenye ngazi za mashirika ya umma kuna kamati za ukaguzi, ambapo ndipo internal auditor anapaswa kuripoti. Sasa hii recommendation ya internal auditor kuripoti moja kwa moja kwa chief secretary, kwa nini isiwe internal auditor general awe anaripoti kwenye baraza la mawaziri, kama ambavyo kuna kamati za ukaguzi huku kwenye ngazi za chini? Internal auditor akiwa na ripoti kila miezi mitatu kwenye baraza la mawaziri, inaweza ikasaidia sana kupunguza baadhi ya mambo ambayo tunayaona hapa ambayo tunayaona. Na by the way, chief secretary ni katibu wa baraza la mawaziri, kwa automatically ni hili ile ambalo mtakuwa mmelisema, lakini mnakuwa mmelipa legitimacy zaidi badala ya kuripoti kwa mtu mmoja. Lakini jambo lingine ambalo ningependa Wajibu mlitazame, labda mlifanyie study, sababu ni wazo tu ambalo limetokea tu hapa kwenye meza. Kwa mujibu wa katiba yetu, CAG ana kazi mbili. Ana kazi ya kuwa controller na ana kazi ya kuwa auditor. Mara nyingi sisi wananchi tunaiona zaidi hii kazi ya auditor. Hii kazi ya controller haionekani kwa namna ambavyo inapaswa kuonekana. Mnaonaje tungefanya katika mchakato huu wa mabadiliko ya katiba, tungetofautisha hizi kazi? Internal auditors wakawa na kazi ile ya controller. Kwa hiyo kwenye katiba tuwe na section moja inahusu auditor general na section nyingine inahusu controller. Kwa hiyo inakuwa internal auditor pia anakuwa ni controller, ili kuhakikisha kwanza itampa heshima. Hawa internal auditors wanadharauliwa sana huko kwenye taasisi. Itawapa heshima kwamba fedha haiwezi kutoka bila internal auditor kuiidhinisha, lakini vile vile inaweza ikasaidia sana kwa ajili ya hizo tracking na kwa ajili ya hizo control ambazo, lakini ni jambo ambalo linahitaji study. Kwa labda Wajibu mngelitazama going forward, kama na mnaweza mkafanya kazi pamoja na umoja wa internal auditors kuona kama kuna haja ya kutofautisha hizo role mbili.
Mambo ni yaliyosemwa ni mengi, hatujajua kwamba ni lipi ambalo lina madhara makubwa zaidi, kwamba ukijaribu kuangalia haya, sababu tungetarajia labda tuseme kwamba ili kuokoa fedha za wananchi, ili serikali iweze kuwa responsible zaidi, strategy hii hapa, labda implementation recommendation hii hapa itasaidia sana kupunguza labda 50% ya haya madudu ambayo yanaonekana kila siku. Kwa hiyo tungewaomba kama mkipata nafasi na mkiweza, mfanye a very thorough mapping ya hizo findings, and then kama mkiweza zaidi prioritize hizo findings, the most impactful down to the less impactful, and then propose a strategy for implementation of the recommendations. Sababu tumeshaona kila kipindi hakuna strategy. Hata CAG report haitoi strategy ya kuimplement hizo recommendation inazozitoa. Swali ambalo lingine ambalo tunataka kuongeza kidogo hapa ambalo limetutisha, labda hata mimi nilikuwa sijui, hilo swala la kuwafunga mikono wabunge kwamba kama hawata kupitisha budget basi ugali wao utaondoka na hawatafanya. Kwa hiyo labda ni kitu kizuri mmefanya na tunawapongeza sana.
I would like to make a brief about the point that we talked earlier. The government should consider to have an independent auditor as an example of one of the top 4 auditing firms. When I talk of the top 4 auditing firms, I'm talking of the DNT, DWC, KPMG, and E&W. The second point, the aspects of unqualified report, could they be reviewed so that they truly reflect all the issues that are found out during the auditing? The statistics that we're talking about, should they be reviewed so that we could deal with this issue, because we are talking about the solutions of this matter? Thank you.
Gender issues have come out as by the way in this presentation. Apart from it being cross-cutting, but we have talked about issues of maternal mortality, we've talked about economic rights empowerment, and the rights have been infringed. You know, when the funds they're not sustainable, it means we're infringing the rights of a citizen to acquire these loans. So I would like to see this come out strong, because when you say it's just a cross-cutting issue, and if you're giving someone, you're giving it as a recommendation, then someone will just take it as a by the way, and we don't want that to be like that. We want to see it there. We want to state it as it is. What does this recommendation mean to the citizens? What does it mean to a mama who is in Mtwara ambaye cannot access economic rights, cannot access health facilities? This is what we want to see. So that is my personal recommendation. Okay?
This year's report is really one of the challenging one. It has revealed a lot of things. So as professionals, accountants and auditors, this is a wake-up call. If we were still asleep, we need to wake up and make sure that we do our work professionally and we flag all issues before the external auditors comes. And as the Institute of Internal Auditors, we will work and take this as just a problem that need to be addressed. I've seen participants, the delegates were really concerned on maybe we need to do more for statistics. So we take it as a problem, and we will make sure that we address all those issues that are within our reach, and also for those which are beyond us, we will really work closely with the parties involved to make sure that we make a smooth environment for internal auditors to do their work the way they're supposed to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think on behalf of Wajibu, I would like to thank all those who have offered comments. And in fact, all those comments are going to be worked upon by Wajibu. And the more so, I think, to come up with the specific recommendation, because I think this has been the general view with most of the participants here, that there should be specific recommendations, and also we take it on board as well that the recommendation should reflect what to the interests of the citizen. So, but generally, I think the situation, especially on the report of the 2020-2021, is grave, and therefore there is need for the general citizen to really pressurize on the government to ensure that at least they are going to take action to correct some of these mismanagement of public funds.
Thank you very much. Also from Wajibu, we would like to thank you, and we have accepted all recommendations. We are going to work on them. Probably I should say, Wajibu as an Institute of Public Accountability is a think tank organization, and we normally come up with analysis of the CAG reports each year. And we are going to produce accountability reports after this, which will have detailed information on the issues that we have presented today. So our presentation today was just the highlights of the issues that we have analyzed from the CAG reports. These reports will come out, and maybe sometimes in June, July. We will also welcome you during the launch, and we will distribute those reports to the public for them to understand more on the issues raised. But I've heard about the concerns on the citizen participation. This is very important. As we all know that public resources belong to the people, and the government is actually collecting, allocating and utilizing on behalf of the people. Therefore, we know the importance of the people in understanding what transpired in the audit reports. So we are going to do that, and it's normally our duty to do that, sensitization, awareness creation for the people to demand, in order for the people to demand accountability. And that is what we are going to do, and that is what we are doing. And we do that work in collaboration with media, with other CSOs, such as what we are doing today with Policy Forum. We do that work with the government itself. We do that work also with members of parliament, councillors, and various groups of people. Whenever we get a chance to talk about these issues, we talk about them with these various groups of people. Therefore, awareness creation is something that is very, very important, because it will create demand for accountability. I've heard some of the comments people are saying that what are the main issues that were raised. Of course, we have seen from the presentation issues of fraud, fraud in procurement, fraud in payroll, fraud in various areas that we have indicated in the presentation. We have issues of losses that are emanating from the fraud issues, from corruption, from theft, that have been raised from the report. This is very rampant mismanagement of public resources, and that is what we have presented to you today. The situation is very bad, and we are calling for the attention of the citizens to demand accountability. We are calling for the attention of the media to write about this continuously, because we have seen that the media reports on this, and then maybe a few days it disappears, and then they wait until next audit, and then they start reporting. We are calling for them to report continuously, but also our government to take action on the issues that have been raised in the CAG report. That is our call, and that is what we would like to tell you.
Thank you, Wajibu, for this analysis. And also, on behalf of Policy Forum, I'd like to thank you all. Policy Forum continues to foster an enabling environment for civil society to engage with citizens, to engage with decision makers. So thank you on behalf for coming through, and also giving out your recommendations as citizens. Now we see the citizen participation at least. So thank you. A round of applause for yourself as well. Next month, tutakuwa tunaongelea the national budget. So in May, so karibuni sana. We are going to provide this platform to the budget working group, the Policy Forum budget working group, that is going to conduct an analysis on the national budget. And we are also going to present it here. So same time, same place. Karibuni sana. Mungu awabariki. Thank you very much for attending.